Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's show on Open Range, where we have a little bit of a left-leaning slant. My name is Patrick Hart. I'll be your host today. I am, I guess, former state party chair, state party vice chair, two-term statewide candidate, kind of an overall super volunteer of the Democratic Party. But beyond my politics, I grew up on a farm. I'm a job creator here in town where I own a construction company. And to be really honest with you, I'm a lot more comfortable in a hoodie and a ball cap than a suit and tie. Definitely work for a living. And want to come to you today. We want to offer a little bit of a Democratic slant on politics. We want to try to get some views from our North Dakota viewership and try to show light of another angle. And I guess what I would ask of you guys today is that if you've ever woken up in the morning like me and you think, is this really the best government we can have? Is this reasonable? If you watch the news and you think, are we going down the right path? Then we have something in common, me and you both. And if you want to listen and watch with a couple of my friends, today we have Jason Thoms and Ryan Braunberger. Jason, tell me a little bit about you. Who are you?
Well, I moved to Bismarck in 2020, kind of during the pandemic, to teach at Bismarck State College. I have a doctorate in choral conducting, and I'm a professional musician. And I taught at the college level for 20 years. About 2 years ago, BSC was going through a variety of changes and kind of restructuring, and that kind of ended my position there. And so now I'm the executive director of the Dakota West Arts Council here in Bismarck. It's an arts council that works with all of the musical organizations and arts and drama organizations in Bismarck. I also started in 2020 Dakota Pro Musica, which is North Dakota's only professional choir. And we've been around for 6 years, and we give concerts not just in Bismarck, but across all of central and western North Dakota. We especially go to rural communities, and we offer free concerts in rural communities. And so I do that, and I also work at Trinity Lutheran Church here in town. So I work a lot and have fun and love music, and that's kind of who I am.
You know, I joke about being, it would be great to shoot a three-pointer, but unfortunately, the only thing I'm good at was working. Now you're a doctor, right?
I have a doctorate in choral conducting.
Oh, okay.
So don't call me in an emergency.
Sorry if I glanced over that. And you're running for office this cycle?
Yes, I'm running for House in District 7, which is kind of northeast and northern Bismarck.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks for running. I'd love to be a candidate. And Ryan Braunberger, who are you? Who's sitting here today?
Well, so, hey, Pat, we know each other. First off, I'm Ryan Braunberger. I'm my second term in the state Senate, representing Southwest Central Fargo. If anybody's familiar with Fargo, it's Shields Arena, West Acres area of Fargo. And I'm running for Secretary of State. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in a small town south of Fargo of 150 people, Christine, North Dakota. I graduated with a class of 25 in 1999, turn of the century. So I'm older than people expect me to be. I have done a lot of things throughout my life. I've done everything from doing inventory to working in auto insurance industry to working in the healthcare finance industry. Working with health savings account flex benefits was my most recent. And most recently, I have a bachelor's in social work, and I was working in housing before that. Some of the things I've done while in the Senate is I've championed housing rights, making sure that we have renters' rights so that people can live in their homes. And if they do get evicted, that they have an opportunity to recover from that eviction and continue to move on from that by being able to seal those records after a period of time. I've also been a champion for our Native American communities, been co-sponsors for bills on the the Missing and Indigenous Persons, and the Feather Act. And then just all around, I believe in North Dakota, and I want to do what's right for North Dakotans.
We're going to kind of break down why you guys are running a little later in the show, but something you just popped up saying, and something we talked about before we got in here, was housing affordability, housing rights. I'm part of a group on Facebook. Maybe you guys are too. It's Renters for Change. It has to do with tenant rights. And a lot of people say there's a lot of really bad landlords out there. Do you have any experience with this group or kind of advocating for people who are renting and live in less than ideal conditions?
Not specifically that group, but I have worked a lot with landlords. I'm a renter myself, so I understand how landlords are. And I think there's great landlords out there. And I think that's where we get into that struggle is many times when we try to pass laws about landlord rights, they think we're punishing the good landlords. And really we're trying to punish the bad landlords because obviously we don't want them, the predatory landlords, to be able to do that. We have I think we still have some really atrocious laws in regards to felons being able to rent. And one of the ways we need to make sure they have housing once they leave prison, because 90% of the people in the state pen will be eventually back on the street. So we need to be able to make sure they get back on the street, and we need to make sure they have those rights to be able to do that and be able to rent. And housing is that stability. We need to have that stability in order to solve any other problems. So people with addiction, people with mental health issues, they can't work those things until they actually get those housings. So we need to make sure that we protect them so that they don't become victims again and end up back in our system, because they're really going to eventually cost us more if they encounter a bad landlord, end up in a bad situation where they're homeless, and then end up committing a crime out of desperation and end up back into our prison system. So it's going to eventually cost taxpayers more if we don't help them at the very aspect of it.
No, I totally get that. Like I said, I'm in construction, and I've had my share of employees that have come across that are trying to get their feet under them. Mm-hmm. And really, I want stable employees do better for me, and I think that does better for society. However, it is tough to get your feet under you once you come out of a situation like that. Now, Jason, we were talking earlier about affordability in housing. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from people about the struggle in getting their feet under themselves and maybe even getting into that first home?
Yeah, well, I'm a renter also. I've been renting in the same apartment building. I've been here for 6 years. And one of the things that I've noticed is my rent has gone up by $300 a month in 6 years. What I have to pay has gone up by $300. Part of that was the landlords moved a number of the utilities onto for me to pay instead of them paying, right? But one of the things I found interesting in the last couple months is our landlord has now been sending out to us that we can flex pay our rent. And to me, that really says something is wrong with the affordability of all of our life. If a landlord is saying, okay, you can actually pay me in a couple of payments over the month instead of having it due on the first day of the month. And to me, that's just shocking, because I have a large scale landlord. So they're not just doing it for my building, they're doing it across probably the whole state. And to me, that's shocking, because I've never had a landlord who said, oh, you can pay in a couple installments every month. So I think that tells a lot. If the landlords are actually moving to this flex pay, that tells us that there's an affordability issue going on.
So when I first moved to Bismarck, I've been here for 21 years. I was actually surprised coming from Fargo. Rent was $200 a month more. You know, when I was at 500 in Fargo, I was at 700 here. If I can ask, like, what are rents at right now?
Well, I mean, I'm paying almost $1,500 a month to be in a 3-bedroom apartment on the north side of Bismarck.
Sure.
And when I moved here, it was $1,200.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ryan, can I get into that? Is that okay?
I would say if you're looking for anything, a 1-bedroom or a decent 1-bedroom in Fargo is probably around $1,000 a month. I think that's about what you're paying.
What I see as hard as that, and to bring back to our current or a previous conversation about people kind of getting out of the system and trying to get established, is, I mean, if we're at $1,500 and, you know, maybe even $2,000 a month, if you get a deposit and a first month's rent, it could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And I think that is really tough for someone to get established.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that the HUD rate that says kind of the average what it would be for folks to be in a 2-bedroom apartment here in North Dakota is about $1,000 a month. But if you think about how much the minimum wage is in our community, that people would have to work 89 hours a month to be able to pay to make that affordable. So if you have 2 people, maybe that's almost possible, but really you need $40,000 a year to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment on average in our state. And most of those people who are in the low or extremely low income are only making $30,000 a year.
Well, I'm going to pivot us really quick. So these are the problems, right? Everyone's facing this regardless of income status. Maybe it disproportionately hurts the lower income more. What are solutions to try to figure this out? You guys are running for office. Obviously you're running for Secretary of State. I would say maybe that's a nonpartisan race, or should be, but you also have a Senate position. What are some ideas that you guys have that we can bring some of these numbers down?
Well, some of it has to be local. And I think some of it has to be with local jurisdictions on our zoning ordinances and where stuff can be built. Because I think that's one of the biggest hurdles, is because what can be built where. Because if you only are allowing single family homes, we need to make then we don't have that. But one encouraging thing, as a senator, I get to go to these conferences. So in one of these conferences I was at in Chicago earlier this year, or actually last year, one promising thing is that I was seeing that cities like Austin and Minneapolis are starting to see rent prices come down because they're loosening some of their zoning. And they're also building more high-end homes, because what it's creating is it's creating that ladder. We've unfortunately have not had that ladder where people can move from that first rent house to that middle income to that high income. We need to rebuild that ladder. We need to build a lot of housing and all that. And we need those higher ends just as much as we need the lower end, because we need people to move up.
Hey, I really appreciate that. And I'm sorry, Jason, I'm going to snub you. We got to jump to a commercial break. But after these moments from our sponsors, we'll hear about Jason's idea on how to make North Dakota more affordable.
Hey, I'm Corey Heppola, and a long time ago, I left my small town for a big city. Now, I wonder, what would it be like to move rural?
Just because we're small doesn't mean we can't have nice things.
So I'm traveling to different small towns across the Midwest to find out.
Oh. It's like every year in the spring, there's always like a revitalization of just excitement.
This is my town.
Oh, jeez.
Sunday night, 6:30 on Beck TV.
Ashley, North Dakota is where life moves a little slower, but never gets dull. From hunting, camping, and fishing to safe streets where kids can be kids, this is the best of small town living. And Ashley offers everything you need, from healthcare to hardware to countless ways to stay active. Here, we've invested in our future with major upgrades to roads, parks, and education. Whether you're here for the day or here for life, you'll find Ashley's where you ought to be.
Let's be frank, it's a pain to be without your vehicle after an accident. That's why you should take it to Jerome's Collision Center. Our shop is supersized, and we have the qualified staff to fill it up and work on your vehicle, step by step, piece by piece, in crazy fast time without sacrificing quality. When you need us, we'll turn your bad experience into a good one. We're Jerome's Collision Center, and we're the best at what we do.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. I want to tell you, Lady Blue and I, we got a lot of miles together, but you know what? You and I got a lot of miles together as well. And all I want to do is bring to you the information on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations. I'm going to continue to travel the world and unearth the stories that make it possible that we can live in a free United States of America.
Hello, friends. This is Culture Crossroads. Join me, Andrew Southwick, and my co-hosts, R.C. Williams and Juliana Ormond, as we tackle the issues shaping America. From politics to pop culture, to faith, freedom, family, and the future. From a faith-based conservative perspective that you won't get anywhere else. We stand at the intersection of faith and freedom. This is Culture Crossroads. Culture Crossroads. Sundays at 5 p.m. Central on Beck TV.
Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for making it through that sponsor break. And we kind of got cut off there talking about affordability and housing. And I want to kick that over to our District 7 House candidate here in Bismarck, Jason Thoms. I kind of kicked you off.
That's all right.
Affordability. What are your solutions on how we can make renting, how we can make affordability on new houses for first-time home buyers a little bit easier for those who find that just a little out of reach?
Well, I mean, a lot of the things that I've been trying to do recently is just better understand some of the issues. So the National Low Housing Coalition Low Income Housing Coalition has said that we're 15,000 units short of where we should be here in North Dakota. And that is a big number. And so, it costs a lot to build. And I was just looking online. In fact, I posted today on Facebook a Substack from a builder who helped with the Grafton apartment complex that built 2 36-unit apartment buildings that were kind of related to this low housing thing. And it cost $15 million to build those 72 units. And so if you kind of expand that out across 15,000, it would cost us about $3 billion to build 15,000 units in our state. That seems like a huge number, but that number is only going to grow and grow and grow and grow over time. And so I think what we need is some action right away. We need for the legislature to figure out how we can bring in some federal money. We can figure out about local money and find a way that we could reach that ideal of that $3 billion to say we need housing across our state to help reduce the issues of not having enough. But also here, I just think of District 7 or in Bismarck in general, since I've been here in 2020, where housing prices up 30, 40%. I mean, when I moved here, I was like, oh, maybe I can buy a house. And now I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I could buy a house just because of how much things have changed. And so I think having more homes available could help stabilize the market a little bit. It could make it easier, as Ryan said, to start allowing people to move up because maybe some of those home prices would settle. I think that's ultimately one of the things I think is important. And the other side of it is just being able to afford a basic rent. And I think that comes down to things like, people would say, well, we already pay almost, $15 an hour minimum wage, but that it should be a law. I think we should look at the possibility of raising that minimum wage, at least to the point where a family of 4 could afford an apartment in our communities. And I think that would be important.
I want to kick that question back to you. So as far as making housing more affordable, when I got into my first house, I was given a county rebate or a down payment assistance, and I chose to help subsidize my mortgage down over the first 5 years on an incremental level. Are you thinking something more like that would make a bigger impact right away? Or do you think maybe infrastructure that's paid for by the state or county or city would make the lots cheaper and therefore trickle down to ultimately the purchase price?
Well, I mean, I think there's lots of concern about, property tax. There's lots of concerns about the rebates that are coming to folks. I think there's a wide variety of things that we can look at to make it easier. I think especially early first-time home buyers in those first few years. I'm also concerned about seniors as they go onto a fixed income and helping them stay in their homes as long as possible, right? So I think there's a variety of ways we can look at it, but ultimately what we need is to say there has to be more available. It has to be more within the financial realm of the people who actually live in our city. And if we just see these prices go up and up and up, what we're doing is we're pricing our hardworking people in our communities out of the dream of being able to move up in the ranks.
I'll touch on that, and I think maybe I'll make a quick transition that we see and we talk a lot about like mental health lately. Mm-hmm. And I think mental health comes down to regular everyday citizens just being squeezed, and whether that's healthcare cost, affordability of housing, worry with economic instability, and it eventually all adds up. And maybe there is increase in mental health issues, because of that, and I'll definitely make that bridge connection between affordability of housing and affordability of overall anything. Yeah. I got a couple guys I'm paying to be out of town, and I looked up per diem rates have doubled in the last 6 or 7 years since I worked for the state. And I thought that that's really telling too. Big indicator I saw this last week.
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect, because we actually had, in the last legislative session, we had to change our hotel rates.
Yeah.
Because we could no longer, when we were in session, we couldn't even get hotels for us to stay at to actually be in session, because no hotel wanted to give us the state rate because state rate was too low. So we had to rechange that formula. So we have had to, so even at that, in order to be able to accommodate people that are going to make the laws are struggling with that. I can't imagine what it's like for everyday citizens that are living every day. So I think you're absolutely right that per diem rates have increased, and that's because the cost of living has outpaced everything else. And we need to figure out how to bring that up. And I think that my idea is, I think we also need to reprioritize where we do our spending too in the state, because I think we've spent a lot of money over the last several years luring businesses to the state. And we haven't put that, and we've invested in those businesses, and some of those businesses have not lived up to their full expectations. So we need to look at what happens when they don't live up to those full expectations. And we need to now rechange our priorities and actually give it back to the citizens themselves through either tax rebates or helping with first-time home buyers or any of those types of things.
I need workers. I think we're good with businesses. I think there's a tremendous amount of capital in North Dakota to start business, to start big investments. But we need workers, is really what I'm seeing from my peer group.
Well, one of the things that I think we can see is if we were able to start to tackle some of the issues with not enough housing, and we have this ballot measure coming up in November, which would be providing free breakfast and lunch to all students in the public schools, and the private and tribal schools can opt into that. Can you imagine we have a state that says we feed our kids, we have homes for you? It's not going to be that hard to attract workers to be a part of our communities. And I think there's these small things that seem like maybe they're disconnected to improving or growing our economy or growing the number of workers we have in our community. But if they were paid well and we had these things like free food for our kids in the school system and we had homes available, I don't think we would be worried so much about we don't have enough workers in our community.
Certainly. Jason, I'm going to pivot you really quick. Is that okay? A hard pivot?
Sounds good.
So you're running. How can we learn more about your campaign? What's your campaign about? Do you have a couple top issues? Tell us about your experience running for office this cycle.
Well, I have never run for office before. I spent 20 years as a college professor. And while I was in teaching college, I was a dean for a number of years. I've worked in a lot of academic leadership positions. I've also started my own business as an executive director. And I do a lot of fundraising, a lot of working in the community to find out what people really need. The reason I'm running is because I think we have a great community, but there are so much inequity across the community. And I think there's really small and easy ways that we can start to work on building community together. And I think I've had a lot of people say, well, building community seems like you're just going to open the doors to everybody. And I think that building community is really more about us making our individual walls a little bit more transparent, so that we can keep our own boundaries going. But as we start to allow our community to be more, our neighbors to be more neighborly, our opportunities in our communities to be better, what we actually find out is we have a better and more beautiful community together. And I think that's really important. As I've gone through this campaign, I've only been doing this for 3 months, but I have posted almost every single day on social media. I'm on 7 social medias. You can find me on Facebook, especially. I post there probably the most, but TikTok, YouTube, things like that. And yeah, there's my cover photo. And I've been really working on trying to connect with folks, talk with them, find out what they're concerned about. And I'm less concerned about what my goals are, my issues are. I'm trying to figure out what the folks in the community are. And they're worried about the affordability issues. They're worried about housing, affordable housing. They're worried about mental health care issues, and especially health care issues in general. And then these things all get even more expansive as you go into the rural communities who are really starting to struggle with these things. And then the last thing that I'm really trying to work on is making sure that we have an equitable education system that really, I'm concerned about our rural communities, even though I'm in District 7, that I think that we have to really make sure that we have a way to stabilize our education system, pay teachers what they should be paid to lead our kids and to help them be educated. And that's really the most important things in my life, is to hear what folks have to say and really try to understand their issues.
Certainly. Where can someone find you next? Do you have a big event coming up? Do you have a big 4th of July?
Well, we have band night here in Bismarck on May 8th. And so come out to band night. I know that the Dem-NPL, and I also know the NDGOP are going to have all their candidates out there. It's going to be easy to find us and to meet us. We're trying to do more and more meet and greets as we go into the primaries. And I'm going to be starting to walk the neighborhoods of District 7. My goal is to walk every single street in District 7 over this summer and to meet as many folks as I can. And I think that's how you do it. You do it in person, and you meet folks and you just listen, because that's my goal.
Absolutely love that. We're going to cut to a commercial break, but first I got a quote. My good friend Adam Martin at 5 Project in Fargo said something that Jason touched on, and that maybe we need a little bit more unity in our communities. We'll catch you right after this break.
Base Flug Trailers of Dickinson is a family-owned dealer with expert staff that know their products front to back. We stock over 150 units of all types and can custom order a trailer with the unique features and capabilities you require for brands you can trust. Our experienced service team is the reason we're also the best place to have your trailer customized or repaired. Count on Base Flug Trailers of Dickinson to keep you hauling.
Come on in and experience small-town hospitality and the personalized care that makes car buying a pleasure.
We know that every journey starts with the right car. Whether it's school drop-off, weekend road trips, or your daily commute, we have the right vehicle for you and your family.
With trusted brands, affordable prices, and the team that treats you like family, finding your next car has never been so easy.
We pride ourselves on personal attention and quality service. The Set Motors, where our customers send their friends.
We are the St. Mary Sisters. We are building a new facility here in Bismarck, North Dakota, for the sake of training young women to be courageous teachers in this state. The sisters will educate the younger generation to be fully alive through truth and discipline. The sisters' life of devotion and joy will make a positive difference in your community. Check out what we're up to, see what's going on, and join our mission to make a difference in the lives of the children of North Dakota.
Welcome to where classy meets Wild West. Buffalo Gypsy Boutique of Bismarck has clothing, decor, and gifts ranging from sophisticated boho style to fun and flashy. Our exclusive brands such as Scully, Double D Ranch, and Tanner Mark provide standout style for the whole family, right down to the little ones. We always have a great selection of Kimes denim, and we proudly offer American-made jewelry and artwork. Find Buffalo Gypsy classing up North Bismarck just off Highway 83.
We're the ladies of Another View. Join us at 9 a.m. weekday mornings.
We'll discuss issues you care about from local and national perspectives.
You'll hear unique stories from fellow North Dakotans, plus topics in the national spotlight.
Start your day off right with Ladies of Another View.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Beck TV and online at beck.news.
We've all heard the phrase, that kind of thing doesn't happen in our town. But here on Midwest Murder True Crime Stories, we will shatter that false reality.
In fact, it happens more often than we know.
And sometimes the details are lost in the back pages of newspapers,
forgotten on our news channels, and eventually erased over time.
We're here to talk about murder, diving into some of the most controversial cases in Midwest history.
This show will not shy away from the morbid details of these horrific events, and the often ugly truths behind them.
Hey, welcome back from that commercial break. My name is Patrick Hart, super volunteer, self-described for the Democratic Nonpartisan League. And I got a couple of good friends of mine, Jason Thoms and Ryan Braunberger. Ryan, I'm going to open with you really quick. We were kind of touching on education right at the end of the last segment. What are your ideas for education in the Secretary of State's office?
Well, I think one of the things I would love to do is I would love for the Secretary of State office to partner with the Department of Public Instructions to help facilitate civics in our classrooms, because I think we need to help understand how our voting system works, because North Dakota is very unique in our voting system because we don't do voter registration. So we're the only state that doesn't do voter registration. But I think we need to educate our next generation what that actually means and how votes get certified and everything like that. And what the Secretary of State's office does. While I've been traveling around the state, I think there's a lot of people that don't really quite fully understand what the Secretary of State's office does. So I think we need to do better at educating. And not just in the K-12 systems, but in all of it. I currently serve on the K-12 Coordination Council, is another committee that I serve on. So I hear the concerns that are happening in the system. And I think we need to make sure we have supports for those people. And I think the Secretary of State office could even help guide that as well in as limited way as we could. Yeah, and that's pretty much it.
I love that idea of partnering with DPI to put that program together, because government is this jumbled bureaucracy of what does who do anyway. And I think trying to teach that out would be a good step in the right direction. Jason, any thoughts on how to firm up education here in North Dakota, or ideas on how to make it sharper?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that we have to really think about is there's a big crisis going on in higher ed across our country. There's a lot of private universities and colleges that are at risk of closing. And we have to make sure that we're really solidifying and supporting our higher education here, because ultimately the teachers that we're going to train, to get teachers to be here in North Dakota, they probably have to go to a North Dakota college. It's sometimes hard to recruit folks in because our pay is quite low for our opening teachers. And so I think really putting some focus into our higher ed to make sure that it's offering education in areas that we really need in our state. I'm an arts person, and every institution in North Dakota has cut the arts back, and it's really hard. Even in the public schools in Grand Forks, the issues that they've been going through in cutting the arts back. The arts are not just some kind of weak side thing. They're a way for us to work together. They're a way for us to grow together as a community. And our students who are in the arts are more successful. And that happens not just in elementary school and middle school, it happens all the way through college. And so I think there's a whole bunch of things that we can look at in education, but ultimately we need better educated, ready to work people coming out of our colleges.
I'll tell you, I'll take that second to shout out to my band teacher in high school. Curtis Crum was the best teacher we had.
Nice.
Throughout. Absolutely phenomenal. He really knew how to kind of engage us and get us to turn on and to lean into things. It was an absolutely fabulous experience working with him.
Yeah.
Ryan, did I see a light in your eye? Did you want to touch on education?
No.
Hey, by the way, 15 kids in my graduating class. You had 22?
25.
25?
And if we're going to do a plug, the only reason that I can speak the way I do is because of my speech coach, Jean Hare, down at Richland. I think she did an amazing job, and I think she's the reason that I can talk off the cuff and I don't need a script in front of me all the time. So I think, yeah. And I think education needs to be a priority. We do better when everybody does better. I'm going to steal something from Paul Wellstone.
Yep.
And I think we need to give everybody the resources that are necessary. I think some of the pay for teachers is not as controlled by the state because it's really down to the school board levels, but we need to make sure that the school boards have people that are willing to pay their teachers too and willing to look at that. And I think we need to make sure that we have the backing by the state to allow that. I think some of the problems with the state is that we're trying to dictate more what the schools do. And I think we need to be careful of that. because I think education is done best at the local level. Because I know there are school districts that do some very fascinating things that aren't standard, and I think that we need to start move more of those to those what we would consider non-standard education, and allowing more student-led education so that students can have an idea of what they want to be, and once they leave the K-12 system, that they know what they want to be. It took me until I was 40 to really understand that what I'm doing today is probably the best decision I've ever made. I think I love what I do, and but I didn't really know that until I went back to school to get my social work degree when I was in my 40s.
We'll tell you, I'm going to take the last statement on education, if that's okay, and then we'll pivot to your campaign, Ryan. But I'll tell you, my kids in South Bismarck have this late assignment list, and I don't get that. If it's due on Friday, it's due on Friday. We used to get zeros if it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think accountability could start a little bit younger in age. However, to puff up the education system, we have this AVID, which is kind of an advanced college prep course that my daughter's been able to be into. And I think there are amazing things that are maybe non-typical to encourage kids to step up a little bit higher, a little bit quicker if they're able. So with that, Ryan, I'm going to pivot you back to Secretary of State. So you can obviously speak off the cuff well. I've appreciated your time here. Why Secretary of State? Why now? You're a district senator. You're doing great. You thought you'd take it up a notch?
Yeah, I thought I'd take it up a notch. I mean, one of the biggest reasons I was asked, and I think sometimes when you're asked, you step in and lean in. I mean, I think it took me a moment to get my feet under me and understand why I want to be in this position. And I think it's because I think we need every citizen to have an option of a choice to who they're going to represent them in all levels of government. And I think I'm going to give them that option. The Secretary of State office is, I think, something that I am not somewhat knowledgeable of because I've served in state and local government, which is most of what Secretary of State business goes through for legislation, because we're the ones that handle all the legislation for election laws and a lot of business stuff as well some of that goes through there for licensures, some of that goes through there as well. So I understand that aspect. I also understand how the legislature works, so I can be a good advocate to help push policies that I think are necessary for the Secretary of State office to run efficiently. Now, when I'm on the first day of office, I'm not going to go in there like a bull and say everything needs to change, because I don't. I think the Secretary of State office does a good job today. I just think there are improvements, but every organization needs improvements. I want that office to be more visible out there because I think a lot of people don't know what it is, and we don't get the headlines that the Attorney General's office or the Governor's office does, which is probably a good thing because sometimes they don't always get great news coverage either. And I think, in my first day at office, I want to actually shadow every department that's under the Secretary of State's office and actually learn what everybody does, because I want to know what their life is. And I want to listen to the citizens themselves and what they think we should be doing better. And I would love to go out and do some town halls. I'm going to do that on the campaign trail too. So I'm going to go out and do some town halls and actually listen to what people want. Because I think there is a portion of North Dakotans and a portion of Americans that don't believe their politicians are actually listening to them. And we need to be there to listen to them. And that's what I want to do. I don't want to come on here and say, this is what I'm going to do, A, B, and C. I want to say, well, this is what I think we should do, but I also want to know, what do you want us to do?
I think that's a really good point. And, when I was at the state, both at the PSC and the Ag Department, I think that transformation comes from within. So when you talk about shadowing every, division director, I think that's spot on, because chances are they have figured out where the improvements could be. I think by engaging them, you're really tapping that potential. So I'm going to give you a hard one.
Okay.
What makes you qualified to be our next Secretary of State? Like, why are you the guy?
I think I'm organized. I think I'm personable. So I think I can work with people on both sides of the aisle. I think I've proven that in the legislature. I've gotten things across that in the minority government that shouldn't probably get across the aisle and signed by the governor. I have bills that I have my name on it that were signed by the governor. So I'm willing to be able to work with everybody. I'm also not to toot my own horn, and this is going to sound like bragging, and I hate that it sounds like bragging, but I'm also a quick learner. I'm one that if you tell, I don't need to be told 3 or 4 times how something works. I usually need to know maybe once, maybe twice if it's really complicated. And I can understand and learn the business pretty well. I mean, my first session, I was the caucus chair, and I took that flag and ran. And I think I could do the same with the Secretary of State's office. And it's going to be a partnership between me, the people in the office, and the citizens of North Dakota.
How can we find you? How can we interact? Do you have any big events coming up?
Oh, I am going to be all over the state. So do you want a list?
You coming to Band Day Parade?
I'm not going to make it to that, but one thing that I will be I'll be in Lincoln on the 15th.
Okay.
They're just doing a forum at a restaurant down in Lincoln. I blank on the name of the restaurant, but we're doing that. It'll be me and other candidates from both sides of the aisle. We're going to do a forum down there in the Bismarck area.
Okay.
But I'm going to be traveling all over the state. You can you can see where I'm going to be on my Facebook page at Ryan Braunberger for Secretary of State. And we'll continuously update that and where my locations are going to be. But I'm going to be around.
How many parades have you been in so far? Has parade season even started?
I've been in one.
Okay.
One.
Where was that?
That was in Fargo, and this is St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patty's Day.
It was cold and miserable, but it was there. But yeah, I'll be in a lot of different parades. I think I might even be out here for the 4th of July parade out in Bismarck. So
we did. I did. Merrill and I were involved in 19 parades last cycle.
So is this a competition?
I parade very well. I love the energy. I love bringing it. I love the high five lines. And we were actually given a lot of kudos up in Mountain, North Dakota for showing up, for being vocal, for being heard, or, for being seen and listening. And I'm glad you guys are doing that as well. Well, with that, you guys, I'll take you to our next commercial break. We're going to come back for our last segment. And, we'll just see where this next one goes. Thanks for tuning in.
There's never been a better time to rediscover the style, reliability, and all-season, all-terrain fun of the all-new Nissan lineup at the new and improved Ryan Nissan. Whether it's the sleek and stylish Murano, the adventure-ready Pathfinder, or the reimagined, ready-for-anything 2026 Rogue, the all-new Ryan Nissan has the vehicle of your dreams at a price perfect for any budget. It's time to rediscover your passion for the road. It's time to rediscover the all-new Ryan Nissan, engineered to endure.
West River Equipment of Mandan is here to help you maintain peak productivity in your operation. As an authorized dealer for many high-quality equipment lines, we have the new and used equipment it takes to make your farming, ranching, or construction operation profitable and efficient. West River Equipment also has the parts on hand and the experienced technicians in our shop to get your equipment back in action fast. Find what you need at West River Equipment on Old Red Trail in Mandan.
I'm Gary Emmett, host of Open Range. We've been at this for the past couple years. Representative Matt Heilman of Bismarck and former legislator Brandon Pritchard are going to do some regular segments on Open Range. While we cover a lot of politics, we're still going to be continued doing mostly all things North Dakota. One exception, Friday evening, I'll be doing a new show on Open Range called On the Horn. This show will be long interviews of 3 to 5 hours with the people I'm interviewing. They'll be airing week after week on that Friday evening. So thank you for being a part of the Beck TV and Open Range family.
Hi, I'm Scott Hennon, host of the What's on Your Mind program on Beck TV now. From Baker, Montana to St. Cloud, Minnesota, and everywhere in between. We're looking forward to having a conversation with you about what matters most. We're talking to newsmakers from members of Congress to the state legislature, and most importantly, the good folks that make up the great state of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Montana. Every single day, you get a chance to tell us what's on your mind. And now you can watch What's on Your Mind live on Beck TV. Tune in 10 a.m. live for What's on Your Mind.
Hey, I'm Corey Heppola, and I grew up in a small town.
This road used to be gravel.
But a long time ago, I left to live in a big city. Now, I wonder...
Just because we're small doesn't mean we can't have nice things.
What would it be like to move back?
Man, it's mad love up in here.
So I'm traveling to different small towns across the Midwest to find out. Because what do I really know about rural living? Oh. The people.
If there is anything that you can say about this town, it's that we take care of each other.
The innovation.
So none of this equipment even existed.
And the opportunities.
It's like every year in the spring, there's always like a revitalization of just excitement.
This is my town.
Oh, jeez. You're close.
7 episodes. Sunday night, 6:30 on Beck TV.
Well, thanks again for making it through another commercial break. I have come full circle on commercials. I used to hate them. I now love them because it lets me get up, use the bathroom, just not sit on the couch for 4 hours watching Netflix. I actually want more commercials in our life. So thanks to our sponsors for that. My name is Patrick Hart. I am Democratic super volunteer. I'm here with Jason Tom, running for U.S. House in District 7, Ryan Braunberger for North Dakota Secretary of State. And I'm going to do something that I didn't think we were going to. We're going to touch national for just a second, which is super divisive, obviously, if you've paid any attention to politics. But I think we have a segment or something we can talk about that everyone does come together on. And again, that really hammers down affordability. Now, in the last week, 2 weeks, we've seen that there's going to be tariff rebates. This was originally championed going straight to the consumers, of course. However, that is not the case. Tariff rebates, if you guys haven't been paying attention, are going out to corporations that are importing the goods and the brokers that are doing the paperwork. And I understand why that is, because they are the people that write the checks to the government to pay the tariffs. However, they're not the people feeling the pinch and that are having more of a struggle filling the grocery carts, going to Walmart, buying whatever, even if it's importing curling shoes from Canada. What do you guys think? Is tariff rebates going to corporations a good fiscal policy, or do you think that's just another grift?
I'll say it's another grift because we know, unfortunately, the way our corporate structure is that it rarely ever benefits the citizens. Prices always go up faster than it goes down. If corporations were decent, or decent is not the right word, because I don't think and I have to say, I don't think it's everybody. I'm talking about your large corporations like your General Motors, your Big Bear, Descent, those giant corporations. They're very good at sheltering their money. And they're very good at making sure they don't pay the taxes that are really owed for them because they're able to spun that off. Tesla just paid a $0 tax bill because they sheltered all their money offshore.
Sure.
And this tariff rebate is going to be another thing that's going to happen, is that the companies are going to put in there, they're going to go to their shareholders and say, look, we made all this profit because we got all these rebates back. But that's not going to come back down to the consumer. The people are going to continue to see the higher prices because those companies are going to want to see that higher profit margin, because that's what drives the stock market, that drives what their pay packages are, that drives all that. So they're not going to backfill that to the citizens. Corporate America proved me wrong. I would love to see it. And you guys say, hey, we got all this money back, so we're gonna offset that, or I'd be even okay if they say, okay, we're getting these tariff rebates back, so we're going to pay a bonus to our employees.
That's a good idea.
That would be even better, because I think that would put it back into the system. And most people that purchase from them are the employees that work for those companies too.
Jason, you going to hold your breath for your rebate check?
No, $117 on curling shoes. No, I'm not getting that back. But one of the things that I'm concerned about is not necessarily what I had to pay, is what we're having to pay across our state, especially farmers, talking about things like equipment, machinery parts, the fact that they were not able to send their soybeans and things, export them out because of the tariffs that ended up shutting down the trade that was happening. And now fertilizer and the costs that are happening because of the war, these things are just impacting everybody. And everything's becoming more expensive. And I'm concerned about farmers not being able to have their farms anymore, just because there's this and this and this and this that just are eating away. And it's just the way our federal government, or this current administration, wants to do. They want to test and see how illegal it is. And then when it's illegal, they say, okay, well, we'll do something else then. And it doesn't benefit people. And I think that's ultimately what we have to worry about. How can we make the lives of the people in our state more affordable, better, and so they can be successful?
What I saw as a home builder, the cost of aluminum is skyrocketing. And average citizen may think, what's aluminum in my house? But your soffit, which is underneath your eave, and your fascia system's aluminum through the roof. Maintenance-free deck rails are astronomically priced right now. And then I've seen a year-over-year increase of 20, 30%. And, it's hard to get a supplier to tell you because it's tariffs, but I think we all know that it is. So with that, we'll pivot. We're going to talk about a full slate-wide of candidates. Now, Jason, you're BizMan. BizMan Dems is an organization. We have a full slate of candidates here in Bismarck-Mandan for people to vote for?
Yeah, I mean, there are 5 districts in Bismarck-Mandan that are having legislative elections this year. And all 5 of them have a full slate of Democratic candidates running in Senate and 2 in the House in every single district. And I don't know, that's the first time in decade plus that's happened. It's exciting. And every single week, all of our candidates here in Bismarck get together and meet and talk about a variety of topics, things that our different candidates have heard around the community. We're using different folks' experiences and expertise and learning more together. And I think that's ultimately where we're at. We're listening to people, we're learning about the issues, and now we're getting ready to go out and really fight for our communities and to try to understand that we can build a great community for the citizens by helping their voices be heard.
Ryan, I'm going to give you that same question. You're on a full slate of statewide candidates, which maybe hasn't happened since 2018 with HH.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that is. We have a full slate. We have some really good candidates too. I think we have some really engaged candidates. I think that's even more important than having a full slate is that we have some really engaged candidates all over the state, and in every district across the state, we have somebody that's running. Every district that is up, we have somebody that at least one in every district, which is amazing. Because again, I think it comes down to for a lot of years in North Dakota, people haven't had a choice. We need to give them a choice. They may or may not vote for us, but at least they have that choice to be able to learn about something else. Because if you're not happy with what's going on, you need to have change to make that better. Because there's this thing called, if you continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect change, that's the definition of idiocracy.
No, I love that. My real big statement is the fact that when I talk to people about politics, they think that the government's on the wrong track. They're not happy with where it's going. But yet we voted for term limits, which come into play next cycle. I think that'll be a really interesting election cycle, and for Ryan. But yet we seem to elect our own in our district incumbents, which is interesting that they don't like other people's representatives, but they certainly like theirs.
Well, you mentioned full slates and energized. We have 60 legislative candidates running in the Dem-NPL this year across our state. That's energy, that's excitement. And so I think it's really important to think about the fact that the reason people are running is because there is energy and the people in the community. I talked to folks on the phone last night. They were just like, we have to have change. Something has to happen.
I love the idea of putting in the work. I love that you guys are out talking, engaging your constituents. You're putting yourself out there. As you can see on the scroll on TV, here's our local BizMan candidate slate. And to touch on something, I really like the backgrounds that all these people have. We're talking about educators, union workers, farmers. I think we really represent the community that we see at the grocery store when we're picking out eggs.
We have 4 generations of candidates here in Bismarck area.
Well, I hope that we can each get them on the show. Now, we only got a couple minutes left. Jason, can I just ask you a really direct question and expect a direct answer?
Sounds good.
Don't politician me here. If you're watching, I would ask the question, why should your constituents vote for you?
Well, I think the reason you should vote for me is because I have a lot of experience working with education. I have a lot of experience understanding issues around mental health care, My wife died by suicide in 2020, and the issues that she dealt with as we got to that point in her when she ended her own life. These are things that are everyday experiences. I haven't worked in the private sector. I've worked primarily for nonprofits. And what that means is I've always been connected to the community. And I really believe that we can build better communities. We need a change, and our voices are our vote. And I think that's really what we need to do.
Ryan Braunberger, you have a bigger audience, the whole state of North Dakota. Why should they vote for you?
And I think if you want something new, if you don't think what's happening in the state capitol is what you want, I think I will give that something new. I mean, it's kind of ironic because I am in the state capitol, but I'm in the legislature. I'm only there part-time. I'm going to be the full-time person when I'm in Secretary of State. So if you want somebody that's willing to listen to you and actually take your issues seriously and try to help you guide that, and if you want somebody that's actually willing to sit in front of, dare I say it, hostile environments and not know if you're going to get out alive. I mean, but it may be a little extreme, but we have a very, very volatile political environment right now. But if you want somebody that's willing to risk that and willing to go out there and put all in, I think I'm that choice.
What I like, and Jason, can I ask you, we're both small towners here. Growing up, Pembina, North Dakota, 500 people. How big was your small town when you grew up?
I've only mostly lived in large cities. My graduating class was 625.
Well, tell you, 635?
625 in my high school graduation.
That's our whole town. Well, what I think is really adamant about North Dakota is that, 90% of our state is rural.
Mm-hmm.
In our rural communities, it doesn't matter whose idea it is, it doesn't matter what their politics is. If there's a flood and you have to fight the water, you're going to get together and sandbag to save it.
96, 97, that's what I did in high school.
And I want our politicians to do that. And I think that would be a good change, is to kind of put the, rhetoric aside and actually work on solutions. So I think with that, I'll close with, if you guys watch the whole segment, I hope you understand that my friends aren't extreme. We're grounded. We're ready to listen. We're ready to get to work. And if you're ready to try to change government, you got to vote for someone new. My name is Patrick Hart. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for the sponsors and for Beck for putting us on.